right, Matt. Well, we're back. I'm feeling better from last week, so I can
That's
talk
good.
for
You sound
extended
better.
period. I know I can talk for extended periods of time without blowing my nose or coughing. I might still have some residuals here and there, but feeling much better, speaking wise
Uh,
at least. So
so I'm expecting a big rant today on your team's
uh,
news that broke when we get to that segment.
I, I don't even think it's gonna be that big of a rant, but yeah, it'll come with the Lakers talk. But obviously, we gave our finals prediction last week. It is time for us to get into the first two games. Obviously, you're feeling good. I am feeling not as good. Uh, to sum it up about my prediction in this series, but let's get right into it, Matt, with game one. So the biggest news, obviously, was that Kristaps Porzingis was going to be active, getting minutes in that game one. At least I can say he was my X factor, right? Um, And he was exactly that, the X factor for the Boston Celtics coming out hot. Um, I mean, he just went off in that first quarter, and you could really see, I think, the mismatch that he creates both offensively and defensively. Um, I mean, just being able to catch the ball in the post in rhythm, just, you know, posting up, or sorry, not even posting up, just facing up defenders, shooting right over the top of, whoever got switched onto him. And we can get into a little bit more of, the Boston game plan or the Dallas game plan later. But I just thought, man, immediately from that first quarter, you could kind of see uh, how the mismatches for Boston were exploited much more than when Dallas was able to get a quote unquote mismatch, right, with Kyrie against someone not named Derek White or Drew Holiday, or Luca against someone not named Derek White or Drew Holiday. And yeah, I mean, game one, just essentially dominance from Boston almost the whole way, right? They jump out to a big lead early. And then I was just saying, like, I even texted you, right, during the game. I was like, I'm not gonna say I'm a Boston hater. I still won't say that. I don't
Yeah,
like Boston.
You're a Jayson Tatum here.
Okay, well, we'll get to some of the Tatum stuff later. But yeah, and anyway, I was just telling you, like, man, I still don't trust Boston. It feels like, this is the typical game where a team jumps out to a huge, 20 plus point lead, and by the fourth quarter, it's a one or two possession game. And that's when I really like Dallas, right? I was telling you that in the close ones, I'm gonna pick Dallas. But nevertheless, when Dallas went on that run, gotta give credit to Boston. I think they called a timeout. Joe Mazzulla called a timeout. You can tell, like, I'll just say as a Lakers fan, it's refreshing to see a coach really use timeouts like that when the opposing team starts to build momentum, and he's able to get a timeout in there, kind of kill their momentum. And sure enough, off of one of those timeouts, Boston goes on their own 14-0 run, right? To really, I mean, essentially that iced the game for Boston. So yeah, Matt, I mean, just game one, right? A great shooting performance. That's how Boston has played all year, essentially. And they set a record, a finals record for seven players with more than one 3-point field goal made. So, we kind of knew how they were going to run their offense. They were able to get a lot of good looks, knock them down when they had the chance. But yeah, Matt, thoughts on game one, overall?
I think game one showed me a lot about Boston and really why I think I picked them to win this series in 7 games. And I talked about it last week when we were doing our finals preview. I said Boston, like they're the most talented, but what really sold me was the Indiana series when there was those tough games, 3 and 4, it was close. They had to rally, come from behind, and they somehow pulled it off on the road. And even you could say game one with that Jaylen Brown shot at the end of the game. in large part due to some Indiana mistakes, but you still have to give credit where credit is due. They did make enough plays to come back and eventually win that game. So if they could do that, that was kind of their battle test. It wasn't necessarily maybe the caliber of the Mavericks team, but they were able to show that they can win in crunch time. And with this one, it's a typical Boston thing, right? They get up big, and even you said Dallas is going to come back into it. And even I thought Dallas was going to come back into it in the third. I think I texted you. I was like, okay, I think Dallas is going to cut this to single digits in the third somehow. It was a 21-point lead at the half. I said single digits. They'll get it to single digits. And I think they did, like 9 or 8. And that's when obviously Missoula calls timeout. Boston regroups, and then they break the game back open again. But that run right there, that 14-0 run, that says a lot to me because a lot of times before, you could even point to this year, this season, right? There was a number of games that Boston was up big and they somehow just blow it at the end of the game. Not championship quality basketball, but for them to execute, kind of withstand the run, because every game there's going to be runs, punches thrown. It's about how you respond from that. How many runs can you stop? And then how many runs can you create? So I think Boston did a great job with the response. But I was actually shocked. I don't know, even going into the game, that Porzingis was actually playing. I think we recorded and I said, oh, maybe he'll come back for 3 and 4 if they're lucky. But for him to be ready for game one and to just kind of go crazy, it was like, okay, this really might be Boston's year because this is literally what, like, the best thing that could have happened for them with Kristaps playing. So I think you kind of know what you're going to get for the most part with the starting five, including Horford. But with Porzingis coming back, he hasn't played for over a month. To shake off the rust like that, that was pretty scary to see. And then obviously the 3-point shooting. You mentioned the stat: 7 players with multiple threes. That's Boston in a nutshell. It's not necessarily like, I wouldn't you say like the Houston Rockets, that Mike D'Antoni team. Maybe they're not that ridiculous with the amount of threes they take, but they're kind of a live by the three and die by the three team. And when they're hitting their threes like that, there's really nothing a team can do at that point. So I think game one, yeah, Dallas had that one run, but other than that, really nothing. And Kyrie, he was kind of stuck in mud. So I was hoping he would come back and respond in game two, but I think we can get that discussion going when we talk about game
Yeah,
two. But Luka was a kind of a one-man show in game one.
yeah. And like you said, Matt, getting to uh game two. So I don't know. I really thought that Dallas needed game two for them to really have a chance in this series. I thought truly going into it that Boston or sorry, Dallas would be able to steal one of the games um against Boston in Boston. But yeah, we'll get to kind of what I think overall. Um, but at least, it was a closer game from the jump, right? Luca doing a lot of the heavy lifting in that first quarter, or first half, I should say. And it kind of felt like, okay, they're hanging in there, they're hanging around. Jayson Tatum is having an off night. This should be Dallas's game to go and win, right? Lo and behold, Uh, Drew Holiday comes through with signature performance for him. He shot 11 of 14, but I mean, it was really, yeah, he shot 11 of 14, but I would say a majority of those buckets were easy, uh, right at the rim, no little to no contest on a lot of those layups. But credit to Jayson Tatum and the rest of the Boston Celtics because, yeah, Tatum didn't have the best, game shooting wise. 6 of 22 is definitely not good by
That's
any
bad.
stretch of the imagination. It's terrible, especially in a finals game. But, to his credit, to be able to still have 12 assists, 9 boards, so almost a triple double, a couple big rebounds too, um, in that fourth quarter to help seal that game. But yeah, the Boston team that, maybe I had my Boston visor or goggles on, the hater goggles on, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, after that game too, I thought honestly maybe a little bit more of an impressive team win because, if you can get, credit to Dallas, you limit Jayson Tatum to 6 of 22, albeit some of them were, open shots that he just missed. But anytime you can hold him to 6 of 22, you like your chances going forward. But um, for Boston to have Tatum struggle and, really as a team, uh, shoot 25% from three when they're typically actually, I'm sorry, I believe they were the best 3-point shooting team in the regular season. Um, to shoot limit them to 25% from three. Hey, you're gonna hold to Tatum under 20 points. Hey, on paper, that sounds like a Mavs win, essentially, right? But for it still to be a 7 point, sorry, oh yeah, 7 point victory for Boston. I don't know. I think this loss might be a little bit more deflating and harder for Dallas to stomach because it's almost like, okay, we kind of stopped them, right? But they they got just their six strong that they play with are just, you know, at another level maybe as a team. So
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of the big ones, and obviously some of the other storylines in this one, Derek White getting a big block, controversial on the Jaylen Brown push, I thought. Um, Even in real time, I just thought with that much contact, going to the rim, I don't know how you don't call a foul in that situation because just of how fast that whole play was, right? When PJ Washington is out on the break, two guys meet at the top, and at least from the TV angle that we got in live action, I thought it was pretty evident that okay, yeah, I thought Derek White got it clean live, but I could see like Jaylen Brown come from behind and put his hand like on PJ Washington, right, as he's going up for the dunk. And so I was just like, that's really not a foul. And then especially when they played it in slow motion, you see his left hand push PJ Washington as he's going up for the block. So I just thought that was a big call, or sorry, big no call in that situation. Would have cut it to a 3-point game, then, completely swings it back into 2 possessions, or actually maybe even 3 possessions, because I think Boston came down and hit a bucket. So thought that was kind of a big one. But Luka as well, as good as the series he's had so far, 4 from 8 from the line, and Dallas, missing 8 free throws as a whole. I mean, do the math, they lost by 7. So, you know, the little things add up even more in the finals, Matt, as we kind of know. Um, but overall, game two, did you have any other things or anything that stood out to you?
I think this was more of a sucker punch. I think you talked about it too. More of a sucker punch for Dallas because well, game one, Boston, they kind of went crazy. Sometimes you just have those games, right? Offensively, when everything is just clicking. Um, but I was saying, okay, when you have a game like that, it's almost evident that the other team's going to respond, meaning Dallas, the team that got quote unquote blown out. And for the most part, they did. I thought defensively they're pretty good. When you can hold Boston to 25% from three coming off the game that they had, that's a pretty good shot that you're going to win. And you hold, as you touched on, their best player to 6 of 22 from the field. That's a game you kind of like, that's the game you got to steal, I think. And I think this is what makes Boston really good in this league. Yes, they have a guy, as I guess you and I can debate, a superstar that you can build your team around. You got a guy like Jaylen Brown, a good Robin, a 1A, 1B type of player, but they have depth. When Jayson Tatum does bad, for them to win, it's going to take a couple guys here and there to have better games, at least offensively. Lo and behold, Jaylen Brown has 20. Drew Holiday leads them in scoring, has 26. Derek White hit some big shots late. He had 18 points. So, there's just so many weapons now. Kristaps Porzingis is kind of your sixth man. He gives you double digits. So there's a lot of balance, a lot of depth, you can say, in the first six guys in the rotation. So you kind of have to not outscore them, but you kind of have to contain a few guys in order to have a chance. And this one, kind of the same recipe for Dallas offensively. It was a Luca, not masterpiece, but a game where he was efficient. But Kyrie, man, I mean, just I don't know if it was the Boston thing, but two kind of clunkers coming off a really good playoff run to this point, and he had a great game 5 in Minnesota, so he was riding high into the finals. I don't know if it's the Boston return or, I think he said some comments saying he thought that the crowd would be louder. So I don't know what the deal is with that, but you're gonna need more from Kyrie Irving. I think that's pretty obvious going into game 3 and 4 in Dallas. But I think that's pretty much game 2 in a nutshell. But let me ask you this. So Jayson Tatum, first 2 games, not really shooting the ball great. Do you think he has a chance to win Finals MVP if Boston comes out on top?
Oh, definitely. He definitely has a chance. I mean,
Because
it's
I
only
don't think
been
he's the
two
front runner right
games.
now.
I wouldn't say he's the front runner, especially after a rough game two. We know basketball is more than just scoring, but when it comes to these, finals awards, typically, um, even if it's not the high score, it's like, okay, who feels like as a viewer, right? Who's kind of had the most impact or had those key plays? And I would argue, Jaylen Brown had a pretty good game in that game 1, and then Drew Holiday has had a good series, thus far. Maybe one of those guys had you give the slight nod to. I honestly think Derek White has had, a huge series as well, defensively. Hit a couple big threes in that game 2 to kind of help bail out Boston, and then even Porzingis, with kind of the run he's had over these past 2 games, can only imagine how he'd be doing if he was 100%, right? But the scoring outburst in game 1 and then coming off the bench and contributing in game 2, there's a lot of guys, that I feel like deserve a shot at the final MVP. And I definitely think though that if, Jayson Tatum goes back to being Jayson Tatum in, you know, the rest of the series and Boston is able to pull it out, I would still imagine that they give it to him. I would still say betting wise, if he would be my safest pick, just because of the name and uh they really want it to be his team, I feel like. So it would have to take, poor performances and uh, assuming they do go on to win 2 more games, I would say he's gonna need, 1 or 2 poor performances again, for him not to be the betting favorite. So I still give him a chance. I just would say for me, I just wish I could have seen in one of these games it be a close game and he hits the shot. It's just they've been up so much, or he hasn't had to be the one, to come up with a big play. Um, I know he had a pretty good defensive play on Kyrie in this past game. He picked his pocket in the post. But other than that, that's kind of the one substantial play that kind of sticks out for me in that game 2 win. But I mean, like I've been saying this whole time, it's like been 3 weeks in a row now. I don't hate Jayson Tatum. I acknowledge that he's a good player. I just want to see him have that marquee moment because it feels like, the past several championships, there's been a pretty definitive player of, okay, we know who's going to win the finals MVP because they're the best player on the court, right? And it's just weird that in this kind of um this finals thus far, it's not like one guy has been, jumping out or, even I would say breaking out to take that step to be in that best player in the league contention. So I would just leave it at that, Matt. But yeah, he's still definitely in the running. There's no doubt about it.
I think he's in the running, but I wouldn't say at this point he's the safest pick. I feel like the safest pick is Jaylen Brown. I think he had probably the most consistent games one and two for Boston. I think Drew Holiday had a better game two. So it's between, I would say, one of those two guys at least through two games. And then I guess you got to put Tatum. Maybe you could say Porzingis, but had a somewhat quiet game compared to game one. But regardless, I think Tatum, the shooting isn't there, but what I'm impressed is he's doing other things. Like, okay, just because your shot isn't falling, you can still contribute to your team and win games in other ways. Like game one, I think he had a nice rebounding game. And then obviously game two, good rebounding game. And he led his team in assists. And he shot worse in this game. So it's like, okay, maybe I'm not hitting my shot, but I can still be a decoy. I can still draw double teams and hit guys when they're cutting to the basket, or if they double, I can kick it out to the open guy shooting the three. So I still think he's playing well. Maybe not finals MVP worthy, but I don't know if I can give him like complete slander. Like I know there's some people, oh, he's 6 of 22, like he's a choker, or like let's pump the brakes. It's not like he was 6 of 22. He's not playing defense. He's not putting in, effort on that side of the ball. He's not, rebounding, crashing the glass. He's not involved offensively if he's not touching the ball. Like he's doing everything else. It's just the shot's not falling. So I'm hoping that in games three or four, whichever one it is, I think he needs one game where he kind of just goes crazy, meaning like maybe 35 points, shoot a high percentage from the field, and then, throw in a couple of rebounds and assists here and there. I think that if he has a game like that, then maybe you could say he could be finals MVP if it's a closeout game, if it gets to that point, if it's in game four. So I think, it's a little unfair to say that he's doing the worst. Like he's just not showing up again. Because I do think he's playing better than he was when Boston was in the finals 2 years ago against Golden State. There's a little you can like, if you watch the games, I think you can see it. The shots aren't falling, but he's making better basketball plays, and he's definitely impacting winning for Boston in two games. So that's what I'd like to see from not just Tatum but everybody else involved in the finals. Right? It's yeah, how are you going to contribute if you're not going to score? Right? So I like Tatum right now, but I think the shots needs to fall eventually if he wants to get back into this quote unquote finals MVP run.
Okay. I have a couple more things actually, Matt, I want to talk to you about while we're still in the finals. So going off of what you kind of said, you think he's playing better than, the finals experience 2 years ago. I just, after watching these two games, Matt, um, like I said, maybe I had the Boston hater goggles on or whatever the case was, but I realized the amount of talent that this Boston, we'll call it six. They go six strong. I know Pritchard gets minutes, Hauser gets minutes, but really the marquee guys are those starting, borderline starting six
Starting
guys, right?
six.
We'll call it a starting six, right? Um, but man, at just the individual talent and like they have enough chemistry, I feel like, to where, you got two guys in Derek White and Drew Holiday who, mind you, are the best guard defenders in the league. They're both second team all defense, right? I mean, the first team was essentially all wings and bigs, right? So they're first team all defense, or sorry, second team all defense. And for them to be able to shoot at the clip that they're shooting at now, Drew, he's a little bit more, inside the arc, but is definitely capable of knocking down the open three. And Derek White, who is not afraid to pull a three from anywhere, at any situation, he can catch and shoot, he can pull it off the dribble. So two just extremely talented guys. Like you said, the improvement of Jayson Tatum. I think as a leader, as an overall basketball player, he doesn't force he's not forcing his game, he's letting it kind of come to him. He's fine being the facilitator. Jaylen Brown, much improved, I think, as well, just consistency wise, because he's been kind of more of that steady hand versus kind of the he'll have a big game and then he'll go ice cold, right? And then Horford, obviously the veteran experience there, and Kristaps. I don't know, Matt. I just think that the team itself, individually, maybe individual talent wise, is one of the best we've seen uh, in recent years, maybe even going back to some of the Golden State teams with, when they had KD, Steph, Clay, Draymond, all in their primes, quote unquote, right? I'm just thinking individual talent wise, and I think the MVP, too bad we have to give it out to a player. It's got to be Brad Stevens for me, for
It's a good
the
one.
moves he's been able to pull. You dish out Marcus Smart, who has been a staple or was a staple in Boston for so long, right? Obviously a top tier defender as well, but you ship him out and then you're able to somehow swing Drew Holiday to come in free agency. They kind of struggled with finding a consistent big, Price for so long that was getting big minutes, right? Alongside with Horford, but then you bring in Kristaps, who, you know, people realize the kind of offensive talent, but he's been such a good defender, huge blocks in this series, right? And it's just like I'm kind of as I'm watching it on the floor, you know, just talking about their offense at first, the driving kick, right? It's if there's no other name for it, it's a ISO. Okay, find a mismatch, driving kick. The ball moves, right? And they just get so many open shots because to me, they have four guys on the court at any time who are able to find dribble penetration in isolation. And once they collapse the defense, they're all good enough passers to be able to make the right pass, find the right guy. And from there, Dallas just can't keep up. Once they get into chase mode, it's like, oh my God, they're going to find a way to get an open shot somehow. And, in game two, I thought there were a lot of open shots that Boston just missed. Dallas was getting lucky, but I don't know. I just think, man, is this Boston team just playing too well and just too good for any kind of defense or anything like that. But I don't know, man. I just wanted to get your opinion on the Boston roster. Is it just that unfair, maybe? When you really break it down individually,
I don't. You said most talented. So like you think they're
I'm
most
talking
talented?
like individual talent, right? Because I you go back to Denver for last year, right? Obviously, a lot of good players, but they all, really fit their role really well. They knew what they had to do, right? But it's like every guy on Boston, or at least, those six guys, right? They're able to produce offensively, they're able to shoot, and they can play defense. That's the other part. Like they're all such good individual defenders, in their role. Like kind of going back, the Golden State year, right? Essentially, it's the Steph show, right? Clay, yeah, he wasn't that same Clay, still effective, right? I know Andrew Wiggins had a good, showing, but Draymond, he's not going to be the shooter that he is. Um, I'm just kind of thinking back, and I'm like, man, like collectively, this is a really, talented team. I know actually, that Toronto team was pretty good, right? When they had Pascal and
That's what I was gonna
Kawhi,
say.
OG, and Lowry, and
Yeah.
all those guys who kind of were individually great and somehow made it all work. Um, but it's just like this team, any guy is capable of heating up or hitting a big shot or making the big play. It's not like, oh, we need our MVP to come have a good series. It's kind of like I don't want to say there's no alpha necessarily on the team, but it's like they don't need Jayson Tatum to have a
Mhm.
great game. Um, like to me, I'd even like if Jayson Tatum's off, okay, don't even shoot because we got other guys that are capable of hitting big shots. And so I'm just like, man, I can't remember a team where it's like like the talent, maybe the better word or a better way for me to describe it is like the talent disparity individually isn't this like big gap. It just feels like any one of those guys can shoot, can play defense, can handle the ball, can make the pass. And I'm just like, man, I just can't remember really a team that all of the guys are able to do that. So
I think outside of maybe, I think Golden State, maybe you can exclude that because they were kind of a cheat code. Even to some degree, Cleveland, but Cleveland was more. Actually, I can't really
LeBron,
say Cleveland.
Kyrie,
It was
yeah.
like a LeBron, Kyrie. You run it through them, and then you
And
got
then you got
guys.
love
LeBron's recipe is he needs the ball. He has a sidekick, and then you
yeah,
got shooters around the
shooters.
perimeter. Yeah,
Hmm.
so it's more catch and shoot guys like JR, Iman Shumpert, Kevin Love was a catch and shoot guy. So I guess yeah, can't really say Cleveland, but I was gonna say Toronto. Maybe you could say. So I think Boston, if you compare those two teams, I think Boston is they're very top heavy. I think they're more talented there, but I think that Toronto team, you got to go back, maybe look at the roster, but I feel like they were deeper. I still don't think Boston is, you can say they're a deep team because you're going, what, you could say six strong, basically. Like, that's not really deep. Like, I consider deep eight, maybe nine guys that you can play consistently, not just like, oh, I'm playing him 5 minutes, to rest my starting point guard or whoever that is, right? I can play this guy, the ninth guy on my bench, he can play maybe 15, 20 minutes, chip in like 7 to 10 points, play defense, whatever it is. But I think Toronto was deeper than them because you had Kawhi, Pascal, I think you had Danny Green was still a capable 3-and-D defender. Kyle Lowry was in his prime. So we know what kind of player that he was. He was an all-star caliber guy. Marc Gasol maybe was the one exception, kind of an old center, but he could stretch the floor at least, shooting the ball. OG, and then I think one of the Swiss Army knife pieces on that team was you had a young Fred VanVleet coming off the bench, and he was kind of, you could say he could have started, but he had some big games where he really kind of just grew and kind of really broke out that season. So I would say they're deeper, but I guess you have to give the nod to Boston for being more top heavy talented with their quote unquote starting six.
Okay. Yeah.
That Toronto team was nice though. I
Yeah,
like that
that Toronto
Toronto
team,
team.
I think is one of the underrated championship teams. Like Kawhi gets all the glory, but you forget Pascal's an all-star. Lowry was there,
Yeah.
The OG was a good solid piece. Gasol. Yeah, and
It's
Van
it's
Fleet, like you
it's
said, that's a
unfair
big
too
contract, but
because KD got hurt. Like I think
that
that
is
would have been
true.
a pretty good series. Like even if KD was playing, like I think those teams matched up pretty well,
And
to be
Clay, you can't
honest.
forget Clay tore
And
his
Clay got hurt too.
ACL. So, um, yeah, but I just want to get your opinion on that. And then, sorry, last kind of topic on the finals before we move off of it. So Dallas is down in an 0-2 hole, Matt. Just, in your opinion, what do they have to do to make this a series?
Bray. No, I'm just... well, I mean, I don't want to state the obvious, but I think Kyrie needs to maybe show up for a game or two here and there because I feel like right now it's like you kind of know what you're gonna get with Luca. He's gonna just do his thing, right? But can Kyrie really play not Batman and Robin? Like he needs to be Batman and Batman basically. Like I think that's what
Yeah.
needs to happen. But I'm looking at Dallas too. I think both games did not shoot the three well. So I think the one thing Dallas needs to do outside of Kyrie, being Kyrie, is they got to get open threes, meaning corner threes. I think PJ Washington, Derek Jones Jr., especially those two, because that's like kind of your starting wings. Like you got to be able to hit those corner threes. whether you're coming off a screen when they drive and they dish it out to you on the wing. I think those guys need to hit threes. PJ Washington was 1 for 5. Derek Jones 0 for 3. That's not gonna like sorry, that's not gonna do it. Like I know they have a tough job because they gotta guard Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum all the time, but I don't need those guys to quote unquote initiate the offense. That's what Kyrie and Luka are for. And if they can't do that, then you're not gonna win anyway. They need to just hit the catch and shoot threes in the corners because I think that's what Dallas was really good at in the regular season and in the playoffs. It was those corner threes. So I'm looking for maybe those guys to hit it, and then even I would say Maxi Kleber. I said he would be my X factor. He's been none of that so far, but he's a guy that can come off the bench, can play a big role, catch and shoot three. Because I don't know, maybe I don't want to say Gafford and Lively aren't doing as well, but it's a different matchup with this Boston team because Porzingis can shoot, Horford can shoot, so you're gonna need guys to quote unquote hit catch and shoot threes because you got to take them out of the paint. And I think that causes the lane to be clogged a little bit. So I'm looking at the Dallas Wings and even Maxi Kleber if he somehow gets more minutes. Gotta hit corner threes. I think that's going to be huge for Dallas to see if their 3-point percentage can increase in games 3 and 4. But they have to do this in game 3 because if they lose game
Yeah,
3,
it's
it's
wraps.
over in
Yep.
4 or 5.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Um, I think for me, there was a couple things that I'm curious to see if Dallas can address. So obviously, one is a little bit obvious, but the free throws, gotta hit your free throws.
Mm-hmm.
You hit, like we said, they lost by 7, they missed 8 free throws. I know that's not exactly how, the score ends up working out, right? But missing 8 free throws in a game, in a finals game, that's going to hurt you no matter what. So obviously, I think they need to shore that up. Um, yeah, it's also obvious to say Kyrie needs to play better. Obviously, he needs to play better, and just go back to being Kyrie that we know he's capable of being. So aside from those two things, Matt, like you said, the matchups, I I think I'm with you. It just might not be a heavy, lively and um Daniel Gafford series, just because like what I was saying, right? It might just you might just have to live with Boston driving in the paint because to me it's the kickouts that are just absolutely killing Dallas. And they don't when Gafford is out there or Lively is out there, they're there to help at the rim, protect the rim. But once whoever the Boston player is that sees the help come, he's just able to kick it out, and whoever the trailing that help defender is has to go then chase out to the perimeter. They're too late, or even by the time they close out, it's a pump fake, then it's another drive by. So I'm looking to see if Dallas makes some kind of roster adjustment or minutes adjustment to get a little bit more speed maybe out there. I don't know if they have the pieces for that, but would be interesting to see if they make a move like that. Just go small, maybe go a little bit smaller, play a little bit more for offense, and play with a little bit more pace offensively because I think Boston, like I was saying, I just think they have too many high quality, individual defenders to where they want to play, this pick and roll, right? And with Gobert in that last series, right? They're playing in drop. But
Yeah,
at this
you can
point,
help off of him.
you know, at this point, Boston's going to switch everything. And so they don't even need to have Porzingis, but they are comfortable with having Porzingis or Horford out there on the perimeter. And then when they come to help, I just don't think Dallas, like you said, has been hitting their threes enough to where Luka's, I mean, some of these passes, I don't even know how he makes behind his head, through legs, like whatever. But these passes that he's making that are so ridiculous, they're not able to pay it off because I think the switches are causing so much trouble. Because that's what I was saying, right? Going to the series, how is Boston going to defend that pick and roll that seems so unstoppable, right? With Luka operating, but they just have the defenders that are able to switch at any moment. Um, and I just think that's causing Dallas to give Dallas fits. So I am curious to see if we see some kind of roster adjustment, going to games 3 and 4. And obviously, I think it goes without saying, but Kyrie's going to need to have a good game. Like Luka's been doing it on his own. You can still kind of tell he's not 100%, but he's giving it his all. Um, yeah, and if I want to have any chance of still being right in my prediction, it needs to be a game
Just got
three
to win
win
four straight.
or the series over. Yeah, I mean that. Hey, we've seen it before, right? Milwaukee did it
Hmm.
not too long ago, so it's not over. Um, but yeah, definitely things are going to be need to be different for Dallas. They want to pull it off. So
Yeah, I think
um,
so too.
yeah,
Do you
but
think they win game three though? Put you on the spot.
if honestly, I would probably have to say, man, I'm not confident. I think they can, but I think they need to play a perfect game to beat Boston. That's just how I feel, unfortunately. Like I'm really truly not feeling good in my Mavs prediction at all. Even for them to just win the series. Like after watching those first 2 games, um, I realized you need Kyrie and Luka to go off every single night. You need to play good defense and limit their 3-point shots. And that's just gonna have to be the recipe you live with.
I
Like
think
as crazy as it sounds, you might just gotta give them the drive to the basket because at least it's 2 points versus a three. Like I genuinely don't even know what Dallas needs to do at this point. But hey, that's up to Jason Kidd. I give him props. He tried to do the mind games with Jaylen Brown's their best player type of thing. So hey, I mean he's doing whatever he can. I respect it, but yeah, we need something has to change. Def for me, it's more defensively than offensively because I think they'll figure out a way to score right with Luke and Kyrie. I just think they'll figure it out, but defensively, they need to adjust their game plan somehow because this drive and kick or whatever offense you want to call it
the five out.
is the 5 out is just killing them. So I'm I need to see something.
But you also
Yeah,
have to remember, for Dallas's sake at least, role players play better at home.
that's
So
true.
guys like PJ Washington, Derek Jones, even Lively Gafford, whoever it is, right? I think there's hope because you're going back
Hmm.
home. There's something about playing at home at basketball makes a difference. Guys are more
Yeah,
comfortable. So I think they'll play better. And then I think Kyrie is due. Like there's just like he's
he's due.
due
I
for a
think
game.
so.
So
Hmm.
I actually you're feeling a little less funny. I feel like Dallas gets back in the series, at least in game three. I
Hmm.
think they'll win game three.
Yeah, yeah. And then sorry, my last point. You helped me remind me there. Um, the guys like Derek Jones Jr., PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford. I just would like to see either a little bit more kick when they roll to the paint because, well, okay, so the thing I've been noticing, right? You go back to PJ Washington, he gets blocked, but he's on a 2-on-1 fast break. Um, I don't know, like there's been a couple of those where, they get hit, they get the ball in a decent position and they go up, but they're surrounded. Like Derek Jones Jr. had a couple where, he's taking really tough contested shots at the rim. Daniel Gafford, who's usually used to finishing so well, gets blocked by Porzingis a couple times because the help is they just swarm. So I don't know if it's like you obviously want them to stay aggressive, but there have been times I'm like, oh my gosh, just yeah, you got the penetration. Now do what Boston does, right? Find someone to kick it
Mm-hmm.
to versus try to force a shot up and hope for a foul or something like that. That was just the other thing I just remember noticing in a couple of these games where it's like, okay, yeah, you're on the break, but it's like you don't have to go force up this shot with 2 defenders, right there and pray for a foul. So that was my last point. Um, kind of wrap on that. So anyway, I know that was kind of a long finals talk, but I mean that's the bulk of this this topic or this pod topic anyway, right? So um before we close on basketball, Matt, real quick, um I'll stick with the NBA for now. We will get to the Caitlin Clark stuff, but just since we're on the NBA, uh obviously the Lakers news broke today that Dan Hurley will not be the next head coach of the Lakers. He will be returning to UConn to go for the historic three-peat. So um, I obviously have my take on it, Matt, but when you heard the news, what was your reaction to that?
Hmm. I was kind of shocked. Shocked in the sense that he turned it down. Um, it's not often you get a chance to coach a team like the Lakers. Presumably, you would have LeBron James back. I don't know, but LeBron, AD, let's just say you have both of them. Kind of often, you really see a coach turn that opportunity down. Um, but I think with Dan Hurley turning that job down, it kind of raised some eyebrows. I think because okay, I guess this guy was, according to Woj, because from what I heard, it was JJ Redick, he's the leading guy, and then all of a sudden, like a couple days ago, at least before the signing, or not before the signing, before the decision by Dan Hurley, it was oh man, like Dan Hurley is now the leading candidate. Like he's flying to LA, he's meeting with Palinka, he's meeting with Jeannie Buss, like he's the lead guy. So I was shocked. I was just shocked that a guy of this caliber turned down the Lakers job. So now it raises more questions like, okay, like if he's not gonna take the job, who is and who's it's almost like it's kind of I don't want to say it's a lose-lose situation, but it's like if you accept this job, you're kind of on the spot to perform really, really quickly. And already seeing what the Darvingham experience was, right? You guys go to the Western Conference Finals his first year, and then obviously this past year get bounced in the first round, and that's it. So it's like, whoa, like like who is this next coach gonna last a long time? Like I don't think so. Like I don't know. Maybe if it's a JJ Redick or like that's the only thing that I would say that would be just kind of crazy. But I don't know if there's any you could say big name that's gonna be the coach for the Lakers. I'm just interested to see who that's gonna be now because I think this was the big domino that was gonna not reshape the NBA coaching landscape, but it was gonna be huge for LA to I think get Dan Hurley and kind of the mentality that he brings. Yes, it's college basketball, but he won back-to-back national championships. So very impressive feat. So I'm more like concerned for the Lakers' sake. Like, man, like if he doesn't take it, like who will at this point? JJ Redick now back in the front.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, first, my take on the Dan Hurley situation. So I thought that it was kind of in the writing that he was going to be the next head coach, like you were saying. I thought it was a good, almost perfect scenario because to me, it seemed like you heard there were already some, maybe you could say signs that LeBron was already a fan of Dan Hurley, right? A couple tweets, you kind of hear, oh, I love his offense that he ran at UConn. And at the same time, I thought, LeBron has stated before, with a guy like Spo, he enjoyed being coached hard. Ty Lue, right, held him accountable. So I just thought it seems like Dan Hurley had that type of personality. Maybe it was more so at the college level, but still had that personality where, you know, he has the energy on the court. He's gonna bring it. He's gonna hold his guys to a certain standard. And I was like, oh, this is maybe like the best case scenario because you bring in a guy who obviously, yes, it's at the collegiate level, but championship caliber level coach, right? And is able to maybe he can help implement a new offense to help this Lakers team right now. And at the same time, develop a championship, you can call it culture or whatever kind of word you want to use, right? Just implement a new era of um, feeling and developing players and all this good stuff, right? And then you hear he turns it down, so it's like, okay, well, I wonder what they offered him. They only offered him 6 years for 70 mil, and yeah, it's a lot of money, but just in retrospect to some of the other NBA head coaches, like that's not a ton of money. So it's like, okay, um, was that your best offer to try to get Dan Hurley? Don't tell me you're trying to be not cheap necessarily, but is that really where you thought his value was at? Because I thought it was, you know, a pretty good situation for the Lakers, but now I have to accept the fact, okay, we're not getting Dan Hurley. Who's it gonna be? As much as I do like JJ Redick, um, I'm still gonna say that, hey, okay, if LeBron's okay with it, I know he says like I want the Lakers to make their own decision, yeah, blah, blah. But essentially, you need to decide as the Lakers front office which direction you're going in. Are you gonna try to make a push to bring back LeBron? If you are, you need a coach that not only is able to coach LeBron, but someone that LeBron respects, right? And is also going to be able to help us win right now. And JJ, maybe he is the next, Pat Riley or Phil Jackson or Steve Kerr, where he can just come in and they can start winning. But like, you need to find a coach that is ready to implement his stuff and be a winning head coach right now. Because LeBron, he's going to be, what, 40, I believe, during the course of this season. So he doesn't have a lot of wheels left or miles left on the tires, right? Like, you need to bring in someone that has the experience and can win now. And it's like with JJ, I think he's going to be a really good head coach. It's just a little bit too risky for me if I'm, the Lakers right now because it could work out, but first year head coach in LA, all the, you hear what the fans are going to say. You got LeBron and AD. Um, I just don't know what the Lakers do from here. I wouldn't be surprised if it does end up being JJ as a head coach, but I still don't think he'd be my first pick. That's all I would say. So,
The thing that
yeah.
I'll say about JJ, and I think it's really one thing. It's the fact that he does a podcast with
The,
LeBron. Like
yeah.
how do you go in like okay, you're doing a podcast, everything's great. Then okay, he's the coach. I don't think there's ever going to be a time where it's like everything's just going to be smooth sailing. Like they're like kumbaya on everything. It's LeBron James, the guy smartest basketball player you could say in the history of the game. The guy is gonna have his own thoughts, like, and we see that in the game when the emotions are high, right? He's gonna have things that he's gonna say that guys might take the wrong way, but it's like, how is JJ gonna handle that? And it's like, and then what? They have a game on Monday. They have a terrible loss, and then we got to record on Tuesday to do mind the game.
I think there's no way they do the pod. Like I don't think there's any way they do the pod if JJ comes as head coach. There's no way he can do it. There's just
yeah, but
I just
I just think that the relationship that they have right now, it's like on a personal level, it seems very healthy. And like to kind of just jeopardize that as a with a coach player relationship, that's a lot different from a podcast, like us. Like we're two podcast like you're not
yeah, that's
gonna one
true.
day you're not gonna be my head coach for baseball. Like, like that's weird to think about. Like that's so like I'm not going to
I
agree
mean
with
the
everything my coach says. Like
that's
that's just the
true.
nature of sports. So I just feel like that relationship it just can't happen. It just can't happen with the podcast. It's a little just too weird. But I
The
think
one
the
thing,
Lakers, they need a veteran coach, a veteran
yeah,
coach.
yeah, I think so as well. But the only thing I'll say about the whole JJ and LeBron thing is that I really do think, maybe it's a good thing, but JJ, he just don't care. Like that it's LeBron. Like I'm gonna be
It's
honest,
true.
I think that if he becomes the head coach of the Lakers, yeah, their relationship, might get rocky at times, but I think they both can at least respect each other enough because honestly, like you see it sometimes. JJ has called out LeBron on the pod, right? It's like, Bron,
Mhm.
what? No, like what are you talking? No. And
It's
so
like, oh,
I
I thought you
do,
were full of shit. Like, they
yeah,
say stuff like that.
yeah, exactly. And so that's why I do think, JJ will keep it real, like with all of his guys, not just LeBron, not just with AD, but that in that sense, I'm not worried. I think if that were to happen, I'd be worried if the pod still goes on. Then I'd be, guys, what are we doing? Like, come on, what are we doing? Um, but yeah, I don't know. I just think that it for me, it's just being a first year head coach in the NBA, no assistant coaching experience, anything like that, fresh in, and it's the Lakers, right? No
hmm
offense to like Charlotte or one, like a team like that, but you're not going in with no expectations. Like you come, any head coach that takes over a team like the Yankees, the Dallas Cowboys, the Los Angeles Lakers, a name brand like that, there are heavy expectations that get put on you. And I just think it is a lot for a first year head coach in the NBA, regardless if it's JJ Redick or, any kind of player or a former player or anyone to be a first time head coach. It's a lot of pressure. So I just think it would be ideal if, like you said, we go with a vet, someone that's been in the league for a while. But guess we'll have to see. Yeah. Well, hopefully we can report next week maybe when we get a little bit more info on that, Matt. But to kind of round out basketball before we get into our baseball um series talk, real quick to get your reaction on Caitlin Clark being left off of the WNBA, or sorry, I should say the USA Women's Olympics roster. It's a stacked roster though. I mean, even without Caitlin, like, yeah, on paper, I they should be winning it all, Matt. But just curious because of the effect that Caitlin has had on, the game, and we've seen it in the WNBA thus far. I think I saw something where obviously attendance is at an all-time high, but ad revenue is up, merchandise is up, interactions on social media are up. Um, and yes, it is a combination of a lot of the younger players that are bringing a little bit more hype into the league. But at this point, you can't deny the fact that people want to go out there and watch Caitlin Clark play, right? So
hmm
I don't know. Just real quick, what is your opinion on her getting left off of the Olympics roster?
It might be an unpopular opinion, but I think that's the right decision because yes, I think she's already a global icon. As she gets better and more comfortable in the league, she'll sky's the limit for her. Like she's already showing flashes of, yeah, like hey, look, this is what I did at Iowa. I can still do it at this level. Now it's just about being a little more consistent. But this is the Olympics, right? Aren't you trying to win and you're trying to find the best 12 players that fit together on a team? Like I think that's the goal. And if you look at the roster, I mean, you even touched on it. Very loaded, top to bottom. Like it's like, okay, who am I gonna take off of the roster to fit her on? Like there's some loaded guard. I mean, you got obviously Asia Wilson headlines everything. Her, Stewie, and you got the vet with I think Diana Taurasi I saw on the roster, Sabrina, just to name a few names. So a lot of star power, but I think you have to still pick the best 12 players in the quote unquote world WNBA that can compete and win a gold medal. Caitlin's time, it's just not yet. Like her time is coming. Her time is coming. Maybe in 4 years, which I would probably have to bet money on that she would be on that Olympic team. But I just don't think she's ready. And she's even in the WNBA games. That's a good test to see where she's at. She's she's had some highs and she's had some lows. So I don't think you can say like she's quote unquote ready to compete with the big guns because Olympic basketball is it's really different. And you could say it's probably harder too. Like you see like teams maybe more on the men's side, but like the US has like stacked teams on paper, and then they play some European team, maybe one or two NBA guys, but it's like close to the end, right? Because of the team chemistry, the physicality. It's different. So she needs to still adjust to professional basketball. So I just don't think it's her time yet. Um, which is why I'm gonna say, yeah, I think this is the right decision in terms of a basketball winning decision made for US basketball in the Olympics.
Yeah, and honestly, Matt, I was kind of thinking about this one for a little bit because it's really a toss up of okay, if you're the USA basketball, right, and you care about the growth of basketball as a women's sport in general, obviously that requires marketing. Like no way to go around that.
Mm-hmm.
Any sport, that wants to have success at a professional level is going to need to generate revenue. And we've seen the revenue machine that Caitlin Clark is. Okay. But I'm hoping that there has been enough hype, that Caitlin has brought in thus far to help carry that over to the Olympics. Um, because like you said, I think if you're talking pure basketball wise, like going out there and trying to win a gold medal, yeah, she's not ready for the Olympic stage just yet. She's not. You know, there were a couple other players that didn't even make the roster that I would say are more ready than Caitlin at this point. Woman being Arike Ogunbowale. I told you I really like her game. I think she's just really fun to watch as well, but she gets left off the roster. She's having a great year. Skylar Diggins-Smith, another big name, left off of the roster. So there's a lot of these, more veteran players that I feel like have had more success at the WNBA level that are not getting, left on or that are getting snubbed from this roster. So it's a really good basketball roster. I will just say that I really do hope that Caitlin and, the rookies, Angel Reese, Cameron Brink, have helped to garner enough momentum so that once the WNBA season is over, we still have some momentum going into the Olympics because of the Olympics, on the other hand, right, is a chance to gain global fans as well, right? You go back to kind of the docs for the Dream Team or when Michael would go play overseas, like when fans get to put eyes on, the talent itself, um, it really does help grow the game. So I'm just hoping that, this Team USA team is able to help, further expand the growth of women's basketball around the world because it is, I think, the next up and coming sport if they're able to carry on this momentum. So yeah, basketball wise, I agree. If I was purely just like we just need to bring in views and numbers, there's no doubt you got to have Caitlin Clark on
Well,
the team.
yeah,
Like
if you do that,
that's just how it goes.
yeah.
Um, so I think they're sticking to their guns of the best will play, and I can respect that. So I'm just saying I'm hoping and praying that there's enough momentum to give them some viewership when it comes to the summer. I mean, I'll probably be watching the Olympics if it's on TV. So I would like to watch them. Okay. Well, anyway, Matt, we can close our basketball and get to our much anticipated series from this past weekend, Yankees and Dodgers. In New York, unfortunately, Juan Soto not able to play in this series. Would have really liked to see that. Obviously, you still got Garrett Cole on the rebound. At least he is making his rehab start now. Um, but yeah, Matt, game one, uh, pitchers duel going into the 11th inning before we get some runs. But um, yeah, it's always fun to see the high scoring games. We want to see the home runs. But man, did it already feel like a playoff game in June? I mean, really, with kind of the expectations of both of our teams. And it's something when, the game is low scoring and it's tied. And it's like, oh man, who's gonna get that big breakout first, especially in a scoreless game, right? The later and later it gets, it's like, oh man, that one or two runs is gonna be might be the whole difference. Um, Luckily we had Teoscar Hernandez, probably uh
I do not miss
arguably
him in the
the
division.
biggest the biggest signing outside of Shohei and Yoshi. Maybe I would say those are the top three big guys. Oh, and Glass not too. You see, it's so hard, but I mean, offensively, outside of Shohei, easily the biggest pickup for this Dodgers team, right? Um, but yeah, just getting to the game itself, Matt. Hey, Poteet, he had a great outing. Um, just unfortunately, offense couldn't get it going behind because we had. Sorry to say, Matt, but that was the best Yoshi Yamamoto we've seen thus far. He's throwing the ball harder than he ever has in the MLB. They said he made a mechanical adjustment. You could kind of see he was keeping everything a little bit more closed for a little bit longer. That added to his velo, I think about 2 miles an hour. So he's throwing 98, but the splitter was nasty. Shattering bats and the movement that he was getting on that splitter, the lateral movement that he was able to pick up, man, it was yeah, I'm sorry. You got to see the best Yoshi though, early on. So at least you have that. But
Hey, you know
man,
what?
it
That
was
in the long run, as a Yankees
that
fan,
will help. Yeah,
that will
that will
help.
help.
That will help. It's okay. You can have this one. You can have this one, but let's see you again, hopefully in late October, early November. And then
Yeah,
we got something to build off at least. We got a scouting report. You know what to expect now, at least.
yeah.
But
But
he was great. I mean, I tip my cap to him. They couldn't hit a thing for him. And when he's throwing the
and
splitter, I think that's his main pitch. If he can locate that splitter off that fastball, it's gonna be a long day for any offense.
I've just never seen him throw that many fastballs though, Matt. The percent that he was throwing at because the thing about him, yeah, he's been having the swing and miss stuff all year. He's had the strikeouts, but when he's been getting burned, it's when they're sitting either fastball, first pitch, because they don't want to get to the curveball. He's added a slider now. He has the devastating splitter, so they're ready for the fastball, and they jumped on him early in counts and so he hasn't really thrown it, but there's something about the fastball that I haven't seen him, really throw it. Like it had life. It had a little bit of movement to it. And that's why I was like, man, if this is gonna be the fastball for the rest of the year, like, hey, that's why we paid him the big contract. Like that's the stuff I want to see. So yes, it is good for you, Matt. But the caveat I will take, from this not only just winning the game but he's able to go up against one of the best offenses in baseball. Granted, I would have liked to see Juan Soto, obviously, your top player, but still got to see Judge. Volpe's on a 30, I don't know, whatever game on base streak. Like this is still a really good Yankees lineup, right? Um, and so for him to go up and pitch like that in New York for the first time, where it's loud, you know what the environment is like in Yankee Stadium for him to go out and do that in seven strong, um, on national TV, right? Like when the lights are brightest, how are you gonna look? And you go that's your first kind of initiation into the prime time. uh Major League Baseball, like, hey, okay, we got a gamer. That's what I was thinking. Like, okay, we got a gamer. When the lights are bright, he's gonna bring his best stuff, and that's really good to see. So yeah, it was a fun game one. Teo the hero. We were able to get the job done. Bullpen was good
Didn't
again.
even got to that point.
Um, in the game one. Yeah, yeah, that is true. Um, but
See, but like these games are good because like this is why as a baseball fan, like everybody likes offense, but as a baseball guy, I love these 2-1, 3-2 kind of games. Like I like the low scoring because that's when you can really see baseball at its finest. Like you can't just you're not just mashing your way to a win. Like you're gonna need a situationally hit, steal bases. You're gonna have to literally manufacture for a run. Like that's the beauty of baseball. And if it's 0-0, most likely than not, you're gonna get top end relievers throw in, or obviously a starter as Yoshinobu's caliber throwing a gem, right? So there's just like all these little things that have to take place, to win the game against top notch pitching. And at least for the Yankees, like Aaron Boone we threw out our horses and our guns. I think Clay Holmes threw. Obviously Hamilton threw. He gave up the double to Teoscar, but hey, Aaron Boone is throwing the big guns. Like that's what you want to see in game one of a big series. But like Teoscar had that big hit, and that was a very clutch hit for him. But I go back to the inning before, and I was texting Wade about this. I was so upset because obviously there's the ghost runner rule in effect for the regular season. So you guys don't score in the 10th. So I'm like, okay, perfect. Like we held them down. Good job, Hamilton. Like now you just gotta get that ghost runner in and you win the game. And the first guy of the inning, Trent Grisham, you gotta get the guy to third. You gotta get the guy to third because you're just playing for that run. So you get the guy to third with one out. That should almost necessarily give you the win because you just need a sac fly, ball to the outfield. But not only did he not get us to third, he couldn't get the bunt down twice, and that really hurt. Like, because he's at the time bench player, not playing a lot. You're a lefty, quote unquote speed guy. Like, what's your job? Like you're supposed to be able to get that bunt down. And it's not like it was like a splitter or some kind of wicked pitch with movement. I forget who was on the mound for you guys at the time, but he got two fastballs. Two fastballs did not move. Yes, it's coming 96 miles an hour, but it's not moving. Like just the way he set up, it was like he was like almost stabbing at the ball. It's like that's baseball 101. Like they teach you that when you first learn how to bunt. It's like it's with your knees. You're moving your legs. You're not moving your hands. Like you move with the ball with your legs. And it was just so ugly. Like, oh my God. I want to like pull my eyes out watching him do that. But things like that. And I told Wade, okay, if Grisham got him to third, they had the 9 hitter up. I said they would have pinch hit Soto. They would have just pinch hit him. The crowd would have been going crazy. And then Dodgers probably would have walked him. Who knows? But then that turns the lineup over to Volpe, Verdugo, Judge. And it's like, okay, perfect. You want those guys up with the game on the line, but that changed the whole situation of the game. You don't score, and then obviously Teoscar Hernandez does what you're supposed to do in the clutch, come through. So see the little things. The little things matter in these good games. That's why I'm very happy. Not obviously with the result, but in the long term, I think you can learn a lot from these kind of games for both teams.
yeah, yeah, definitely. It was a great game one, Matt, like you said. But yeah, I was glad we were able to steal that first one. Um, Second one, not as close in the box score, although
It was a close game.
it was a close game up until it wasn't. But yeah, Matt, in that game too, sorry, not Michael Grove, Gavin Stone, another really good young pitcher for us. He's had a really good year thus far. I was excited to see him kind of get tested, and I wouldn't say he was the sharpest necessarily, right? He got touched up a little bit, but I was impressed with how he was able to pitch around the situations that kind of got himself into. Um, Couple big moments, relying on his defense to help bail him out. But I thought overall, to be still a young pitcher and like I said, coming to Yankee Stadium, that's a tough environment. Off of a really tough loss, that Yankees lineup was hungry to get some runs back, right? And even though he did get into a little bit of trouble, at first it seemed like after that Judge hit a home run. He was like, okay, let's see if he can kind of settle back in, and he was able to do just that. Scattered 8 hits over 5 and 2/3, but did his job for the most part. I felt like he's another guy with really good stuff. I like. I just don't think he was the sharpest that day, but when you're going up against a lineup like the Yankees, yeah, you're bound to have some runs come eventually, Matt. But I wanted to give the floor to you because we all know that yes, this was a close game. Um, but man, you know, felt like you guys still had a chance. Only down two, right? Going into the eighth inning. Um, and then self-inflicted errors, Matt. So why don't you give me your thoughts on game two?
Oh, errors. Yeah, we're no stranger to that because we have a guy who leads Major League Baseball with 10 errors, so probably the most penalized second baseman in baseball. But I was even texting you this, like as soon as that happened, I was like, "Oh, we're so screwed." We're so screwed because you had a chance. Yes, the game is still in striking distance. It's like 4-2, but Shohei is up. It's a ground ball to second. It's like, okay, maybe you don't turn two, but definitely you can get the lead guy out and Mookie at second. But instead of potentially getting a double play, it's first and second, no outs. And then you got obviously the top half of the Dodger lineup is as good as any teams in baseball. So you give a team like that an extra 2 outs, you're asking for trouble. So it's only fitting that Teoscar ends up hitting a grand slam that inning to really just kind of break the game open. Um, but again, in the short term, was ugly. In the long run, depending how the Yankees, played out over the next month and a half, maybe. Um, this is something that you can take and you can learn from, and you can make a roster adjustment to make that change or make that thing not happen again. Um, I'm I don't care if they hate it, but you can't have a guy like Liberatores on your team. Um, in terms of being a starting caliber second baseman and expect to go deep in the playoffs because these little things in the playoffs that's how you lose series, you lose games. That's how you end your season if you do that in October. Like, you just can't have those kind of errors against the top of the lineup. You're giving a good team with good hitters extra outs. Like that's asking for trouble. Um, I don't know what the options are out there. There are some internal options that you could go to, but Aaron Boone, he's trying to do his job. He's a manager. He's trying to, protect his players. But, the excuses that he's making, it's not valid because he leads the league in errors. You can't back that up. And then the game before, I forgot to mention, drops a fly ball, like a little pop up. It's like routine. It's like, what did they teach you in baseball? It's like baseball 101 again. It's like, don't drift to the ball. If you can beat the ball there, you should be under it, catching it with 2 hands. So what does Glaber do? He's like, oh, nonchalantly like running, tries to like almost like do a no look one-handed catch when he had time to get under the ball, set his feet, look and catch it with 2 hands. Like just things like that. Aaron Boone, oh yeah, he makes things look effortless. That is not effortless. That's not effortless. That's lazy. That's lazy. That means you're not moving your feet. Like, I don't know if he's trying to be like Robinson Cano, but Robinson Cano, that's why maybe he's my favorite player ever. Maybe he could get away with that, but he made it look effortless and he made the plays. The guy was a gold glove second baseman. So obviously I'm not complaining about his defense. Gleyber Torres is nowhere near a gold glove second baseman, so he doesn't have that validation. He can't just do that. Like I watch a guy like Volpe, guy who won a gold glove. He's not nonchalantly out there, trying to catch balls and try to be fancy. Like when I see him, he looks like I don't want to say me out there, but someone like me, like he has to put in some effort, to beat the ball, set his feet, throw it with conviction. Like that's what you want to see, a little more hustle, a little more effort. Glaber, it's all like, even the routine ones, he fields the ball, and it's kind of like I just kind of flick the ball, and he short hops it to Rizzo and he picks it. It's like, you got time, set your feet and throw it to first. So that's the kind of things I take away. But long story short, outside of Glaber, you touched on it. The runners in scoring position, we weren't that good. We had a chance to get to Gavin Stone early. Stanton, Rizzo, every time the top of the lineup, the top three can set the tone. Those guys are going to have to deliver for us. And if they cannot, that something needs to change because you can expose that in the playoffs. You can pitch around three heavy top hitters and get around with the six guys behind that. So a lot of things that you can learn in this game too that I saw with this loss. So again, bad loss in the short term, but in the long run, depending how you play it out, it can work out as a benefit because I learned a lot from that game with the bad that I saw at least. Because outside of Aaron Judge, it's okay offensively, but not very good with runners in scoring position.
Yeah. I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head there with game two, but game three, uh, I really thought, eh, I not to be, spoiled or anything, but I was like, okay, well, we got the series. We lose this one, whatever. Um, but yeah, I was pretty happy going into that game. Man, the thing about Glass now though, he does have the stuff, but he just has a tendency where he kind of will just have these games where he gets lit up. Um, I don't know. It's like everything comes from that same tunnel, right? So it's like either fast, it's gonna break hard, or it's gonna be the big looper. And then if something's like a little bit off, and guys can kind of time up or predict what he's gonna do, and they can tunnel in on that fastball, they can do damage. And lo and behold, that kind of what happened in this one. Got hit hard, but I thought did well to limit the damage early. But man, uh, Trent Grisham with the backbreaker in this one. After we, go up with from Teoscar again, hits the home run to break the tie. Um, Trent Grisham, the guy, Yankees fans are cheering for Soto. Um, the big spot, and what does he do? Just turn on a fastball and put it, you know, 30, 40 feet up in right field bleachers. So huge hit for him there. I thought that kind of helped break the game open, but I thought this was probably the best game where there was a back and forth offensively. Because even after that, Dodgers able to kind of help limit some of the scoring. We get one back from Shohei tagging up, beating out a really strong Judge throw
Yeah.
there. So another, use of the five tools from Shohei. But man, to me, the Judge home run late, like that was
That was
the
huge.
nail in the coffin. To give that extra insurance run to you guys, and man, honestly, I just thought that there were a couple plays in that game, uh, that really hurt us. So going off that home run, they said it on the broadcast too, but right after it happened, I was just thinking, okay, you throw a hanging slider and he misses. He just misses it, right? We're gonna throw the same pitch. Like Well, okay, well, are we just assuming you're not gonna hang it? Is that still the case? But I'm like, regardless, he just saw the pitch, right? Like, he, it's fresh in his mind what the slider is gonna look like. Lo and behold, you throw the same pitch in the same spot. Yeah, he's gonna crush it, especially with a guy like Judge, who's as hot as he is. I'm almost like, just pitch around him at that point. I would rather take my luck with Stanton on deck,
Yeah.
honestly, with how it's going. Um, like, just do not give him a pitch to hit, and don't you can't miss in the zone with a pitch like that. You know, sweeper or wherever the slider hanging in the same ball path as you just threw the pitch before. Like, come on, what are we doing here? Thought that was a big one, and then going back to that, actually to the Dodgers when it was first and second, right, and PK goes down to lay the bunt, and Andy Pajes doesn't know how to slide. He lets his front leg comes up and misses the bag. So the first leg to hit the bag is his back foot. He does that, or he keeps his foot down. He's safe, and we have second and actually we have bases loaded with one out because then they don't get the out at third, and they don't get the out at first. So I'm just like, oh my God, Andy. And there's another moment, with him on the bases that happened earlier this year. I think it was another situation. He's on second. The hard hit ball hit the shortstop, right? And they turn, throw to third, get him out at third. I don't even was that in this series? I'm trying to remember if that was Volpe, um, that was
At
able to do
third.
that
Yeah, that was. I think that was the first.
in game
Was it the
one, I
first game?
believe.
I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm pretty sure that was the same situation where I'm pretty sure it was Andy again, but just poor base running. I'm like, guys, we need to be able to run the bases effectively. Because I thought in that one or in game three, it's like, man, you just slide and you have the pin. Like, okay, go dive head first then if you got the pin on, right? At least you're getting to the base early, but if you're gonna slide, like, please, on a force play, we need the body part to get in as soon as we can. So I was just like, man, yeah, good learning moments for the Dodgers as well in game three of that. But yeah, at least you guys did get one. And without Soto, no Cole, Nestor didn't really have it in that game too. But um, Luis Hill, still another pretty impressive performance for his young career. So I feel like there's a lot that's still like in the series overall for you.
Yeah, I think so. There's a lot of bad, I think, but there's also a lot of good. At least, we saw some of it. I like the last inning though of game three. Obviously I want to see Clay Holmes in a save situation again. And the fact that he was able to strike out Mookie to end the game with the two guys on, right? Dangerous hitter. I think he had the game tying double earlier in the game. So obviously he had a big hit, probably was feeling confident as always. It's Mookie. But for Clay to go up there and get the job done, that's big because you're gonna have to get those Mookie bets. You're gonna have to get, well, if you're in the AL, you got to get the Jose Ramirez. You got to get Gunnar Henderson. You got to get all these good guys out, in crunch time situations. So I'm just happy that he was able to answer the bell in that game. That was a huge, huge save for him because he got the first two guys out and said, okay, yes, we got the bottom of the lineup and hit. It's like, oh no, he did not want to get to me. And then I was watching on my phone. I was like, please do not let Shohei come up. Like, bases loaded. Like, do not let him see another at bat in this stadium until October. Like, do not. So it was just good to see Clay get out of that one. But I don't know. I think I like the Dodgers. Like, we talk about the Yankees and Dodgers all the time, but at least my takeaway for you is, man, if you're at bottom of the half, can just get on base and just do literally anything. You guys are going to be a tough out in the postseason because that's why you guys won game two. It wasn't really necessarily, the top guys. It was relatively the bottom half. So it's like, man, if you guys can do that, you guys blew us out. It's like you guys can blow out anybody if those guys can
Hmm.
get on for the top. So I guess that was like the one series that actually that happened because Chris
Yeah.
Taylor was hitting, PK was hitting, he hit a home run, I think. So
And if we get Muncy,
Hodges had a couple.
we need Muncy to come back as well. So yeah, I'm liking how we're looking so far. I think it was a good test for both of our teams, Matt. Um, and honestly, I think it was a good kind of kick in the butt for the Dodgers because they've been playing 500 ball over the past several weeks. And, you know, when you do have a super team and you expect to go out there and win every game that you play, because you know you're just better, you can, tend to take your foot off the gas a little bit, get a little bit complacent. But hey, it's the Yankees. We're in New York. Okay, let's get ready to go. And it felt like this was the series that we needed at this time to kind of light the fire and get our guys completely locked in. So good series, I think, for both teams all around. Lot for each team to learn and grow from. But why don't we wrap our sports topics for now, Matt, and get into some of our quick hitters as we usually do. So why don't you start us off with our foolish fool? Who's our foolish fool of the week?
Foolish Fool of the Week is the the debate show First Take because today they had one of the most ridiculous segments I've seen on a sports show. Um, so I guess breaking news: LeBron James unfollowed Kendrick Perkins on Instagram. Ooh, so sad. But they go on to have like a over 10-minute segment about this. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? You guys realize that the finals was
The finals are going on.
you guys just had game two of the finals that night, and you guys choose to waste 10 minutes of your time talking about this. And I know those guys aren't baseball guys, but the Yankees and Dodgers had a pretty exciting series. The Stanley Cup is going like you guys, there's all these things going on enough, and you talk about social media just because LeBron James unfollowed someone. I swear, the guy just LeBron does something, and it's like, oh my gosh, like what did he do? Like, oh my god, like it's a little ridiculous at that point. So, please, First Take, don't waste our time with this segment. It wasn't fun. I wasn't a fan of it. Could have been talking about something else more related to sports, but that's why you guys are the foolish fools of the week.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like it's a little bit just too much. Um,
At
on
the
the LeBron
finals,
stuff.
man. You guys are
Yeah,
all
like
basketball guys, and you talk about the
we're
finals.
is
Talk
this
about
not a
Dan
sports
Hurley. Like,
show?
there's so many
Yeah,
things.
yeah, I'm right there with you. Okay. Well, if that's all you had, Matt, we can get to the state of the 808 real quick. Our guy, IKF, on an absolute heater this past month.
IKF.
Um, I mean, he had a great week. He had a walk-off hit, helping out the Yankees by walking off the Orioles, right? So
It's true.
IKF still being a good
Once
Yankee
a Yankee,
team
always a
player,
Yankee, I guess.
still helping them out. Um, and then I believe it was yesterday, ended up having five RBIs against the A's and had the go ahead bases clearing double um, for the Blue Jays. So he's doing his part to help out. He's up to around 270 right now. Big piece for them, honestly. He plays every day. He's a versatile guy. I think it's going to depend where the Jays are at, if they're still in striking distance or not. But if they're not and they're ready to just blow it up, I think we could see a lot of guys on the move, including IKF. I think, with his contract, it is a little bit big, but I think production wise, his defense has been much better this year, and the bat has been much better um for him. So I think he's gonna garner a lot of interest around the deadline. I just think it'd be fun if he somehow ends up back in New York. Like honestly, at this point, you probably couldn't even deny. Like, who would you rather have at second base? Would you rather have IKF or would you rather have Glaber at this point? Because Glaber, you're always gonna have more pop, right, with the bat, but he's not hitting. The defense isn't, the most impressive thing in the world. So I just think that would be funny if he somehow ended up back in New York somehow. Yeah,
You
that'd be
just
funny.
want me to suffer, that's why. So we
Yeah,
have other options. We have a guy, Oswald Peraza, you know, he's young, talented kid supposedly. So there's options. You know, DJ LeMahieu can play second. Oswaldo Cabrera can play second.
that's true.
There's options. Let's pump the brakes a little bit.
Okay, well, that's all I had, Matt. Why don't you give us our sports fact for the day?
All right, sports fact of the day. We're recording on June 10th, and let's go back to 2016, where the Golden State Warriors were in the finals. Uh, they won game four on this day to take a 3-1 series
Mm,
lead against the Cleveland Cavaliers, led by LeBron James, and dare I say, a
surely
healthy
they went on to
Cavaliers
win it,
team.
right?
So, you know, I think I'll just leave it at that. A 3-1 lead, and the rest is history, as we all know.
Surely they went on to win that series. Up 3-1 in the finals. Yeah,
73 and 19. Yeah, definitely got to win.
no way they didn't win. All right. Well, thanks, Matt, for that. Yeah, it was a good pod. We were able to get in a lot of good sports talk, focusing on sports. Um,
No shot intended.
no, I mean, hey, they got to do what they got to do to get their ratings. So be it. We just like to talk about sports. So,
Yeah, they do it for the
uh,
ratings. We do it for the love of sports. So,
exactly for the love of sports, right there. Okay. Okay. So, yeah, thanks, Matt. It was a good week. Thank you, everyone, as usual. Hopefully, we'll have more updates. Hopefully, for my sake, we still have finals talk next week. But, yep, as usual, stay safe, have a good one, and we'll see you guys next week.